Hey, what's going on everybody? It's Patrick Dang here. Now I have a question for you, and that is, do you want to close more sales? Now, no matter who you are, what you do, of course you do, because why wouldn't you? So in this video, I'm gonna show you 5 insanely quick tips to close more sales, and you're gonna be able to apply these tips right away and start getting results. So if you're excited to learn these 5 quick tips, make sure you give this video a like because every like does count. And if you haven't already, make sure to subscribe if you want to see new videos like this every single week. And lastly, if you haven't already, hit that notification bell so you can be notified on when I'm dropping these videos every single week. So with that said, let's go ahead and get into the 5 insanely quick tips to grow your sale. All right, so going into tip number 1, and that is doing what's best for the customer. Okay, so here's the thing about sales. A lot of salespeople out there, they get into sales because obviously they want to make money, they want to make commissions, and they want to sell stuff, right? But the problem is that a lot of times salespeople will just sell, and the only thing they have on their minds is how they can make money off of another person. And I totally get it, I understand that perspective. However, if you want to be an effective seller, it's not about just selling things to people just for the sake of your own benefit, but it's actually about doing what is best for the customer. So let me go ahead and give you an example of what not to do. I remember not too long ago, I was looking for a new apartment to live in, and I was working with a real estate agent, and I told the real estate agent that there's certain specifics that I was looking for, right? For example, the apartment had to be on the 20th floor or higher, it couldn't be noisy, had to have a lot of sunlight, so all these requirements that I wanted, right? So I told this person my requirements, and the first apartment that they showed me was an apartment that was on the 3rd floor, no sunlight, next to a swimming pool, so there was a lot of kids making a lot of noise, and obviously that just didn't fit what I was looking for. So when I asked the real estate agent, why don't you show me any apartments that match the criteria that I asked for? And the real estate agent said, I don't have any inventory of those kind of places. Now in this situation, obviously, if the real estate agent didn't have what I was looking for, they should have just told me that in the beginning so I wouldn't have to waste time going to these apartments that weren't really a fit for what I was looking for, and there's no way I was going to go through with any of these deals, right? So if this person had my best interest in mind right from the get, they should have said, hey, look, I want to help you, but I don't have any inventory based on what you're looking for. Here's someone else that might be able to help you, right? They could have done something like that, but instead they tried to sell me something that I wasn't going to buy, and it's just wasting everybody's time. So that's exactly what you don't want to do. Don't just try to sell something to someone just because, especially if you know that they shouldn't be buying it. That's not the way to go. Instead, you want to think, how can you actually help the customer, right? Really care about their situation and how you can improve their lives by selling them your products or services. And if you find that maybe they shouldn't buy whatever it is that you're selling, you have to tell them up front, because it's not good to trick people into buying something they don't need. However, if you're able to identify a pain and you can see that, hey, they should buy your product or service, then communicate that and make them aware that that's the right thing for them to do. Because when your intent is different, right? Instead of just thinking about how you can maximize your commission, but instead thinking about how you can help your customer the best as you can, people can really feel the difference, right? And you build a lot more trust, you're a lot more genuine, and people are a lot more likely to purchase from you because 1, they like you, and number 2, you're actually trying to help them instead of just selling them something like all the other salespeople out there. And your job as a seller is really just to help people make buying decisions and really help them out in their lives. And if you do a good job in that, it's going to be really easy for them to refer you to their friends and their families and other people they may know, and you're able to get more business because you do such a great job helping others. And that's how you're going to be able to consistently close sales in the long term. So instead of thinking short term, think long term and really help your customers and care about where they're coming from. All right, so the next sales tip that we have for you is listen more than you speak. A lot of people get in sales because they think they're great talkers, and that's why they think they can sell something to somebody. However, the best salespeople, I've said this before in my other videos, the best salespeople are the ones that can listen. So here's the thing about sales, right? So when you go into a selling situation, a lot of salespeople who maybe aren't the most trained, they might just right away talk to the customer and say, hey, this is why you should buy my product. My product is the best, blah, 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 blah. And people don't like that, right? Because 1, how do you know if someone should buy your product if you don't even know where they're coming from or what their situation is, right? If you're trying to sell something too early without really knowing if someone should actually buy it, then obviously that's not a good selling situation on both sides. So instead, what you want to do is you want to ask questions and you want to listen to what the customer's problems are, and hopefully if they have enough problems or if they have problems that fit your product or service that you're selling, you can prescribe a solution as your product and service, and it's going to be so much easier for them to buy it. So in any type of sales meeting, here's a rule of thumb. You want to be listening 80% of the time, and you only want to be talking 20% of the time. Now, it's kind of like a rule of thumb. If it's 75-25, that's fine too. But really, the majority of the time, you should be listening to your customer, understanding what exactly they need so that you gather all this information, and then when it's your turn to speak, you can show them how your product or service is the right fit for them. And if, let's say, you reverse the situation where you're talking 80% of the time about how great your product or service is and the customer is talking 20% of the time, they're really unlikely to buy because they just feel like you're pitching them something that they don't really need, right? But if you really pay attention to what people want, you can craft your pitch in a way that relates to their desires, and it's going to be so obvious for the person to buy your product or service because they see clearly how what you're selling fits their needs. I'll go ahead and give you an example, right? So let's say you're sick and you go to the doctor. When you go into the doctor's office and you're meeting with this person, it's not as if they're prescribing you medicine or something like that right away, right? They're not gonna say like, hey, you're sick, let me prescribe you this, this, and this, right? You're gonna think, why are you prescribing me these medications when I haven't even told you what my problem is? This doesn't make any sense. So what a real doctor actually does is they have you come in, sit down, and they say, okay, so what seems to be the problem, right? And then you as the patient will say, oh, my stomach hurts, I have a headache, or whatever the case is, and the doctor will keep listening, asking more questions, and get really specific on exactly what the problem is, and then from there, they can prescribe you a solution once they have a clear idea and understanding of what the problem is. Selling is pretty much the exact same thing. You don't want to sell too early and prescribe a solution when you don't understand the customer yet, right? You have to ask questions, dig deeper, and then when the customer tells you certain things, you ask more questions to make sure you're right and you're really specific on what the customer's problems are. And then at the end, you can only prescribe a solution once you really have empathy and understand where this customer is coming from. So that actually brings us into our next tip, which is learn how to actively listen, okay? So when you're actually listening to a customer and you're asking these questions, customer is telling you their problems, you don't just want to pretend you're listening and be like, I gotta let this person talk 80% of the time, and then once they're done, I'm gonna pitch them. That's what a lot of salespeople actually do, right? They just literally wait it out and then pitch at the end. However, when you're listening that 80% of the time, you have to actively be listening. And let me tell you the difference between actively listening and just listening. So when you're actively listening, you're really paying attention to every phrase, every word that the customer is saying, because you want to emotionally understand what's happening, what their problems are, and you really want to get specific. You don't want to pretend you're listening because you really need to know what their problem is, right? And to do this, not only do you have to just listen, but you have to show the customer that you're listening. So if the customer is talking, you have to do certain verbal cues or physical cues to show them you're listening. So examples would be like saying, I hear you. Oh, I see. Can you tell me a little bit more about that? And so when you're listening to somebody, make sure you're using these verbal cues and these physical cues to show that you are listening to the customer, because they can feel the difference, right? And if someone feels like you're actually listening, a lot more trust is built and they're a lot more willing to tell you critical information that you need in order to close the sale. So for example, if the customer really trusts you, there's a lot of rapport built, they're a lot more likely to tell you things like their budget, how much money are they willing to spend on investing in your solution, their timeline on when exactly they will invest, and if there are any other decision makers that you need to bring into the conversation to actually move forward with the deal, right? But people won't necessarily tell you these things unless they trust you. And how do you build trust? Like I said before, actively listen to what people say. Not only listen to the information, but show the customer that you are listening using verbal cues and physical cues. All right, moving into tip number 4, and that is be willing to walk away from a deal. Now, not all deals are created equal, right? Some deals might be good for the customer and not good for you. Other deals might be too good for you and not great for the customer. So let me show you what I mean. So sometimes you are selling, let's say, a service, right? So maybe you are building a website for somebody or something like that, okay? So in some scenarios, the customer might lowball you and they may say like, hey, you should do all this work for me and I'm gonna pay you very little and it's worth it for you because XYZ, and they just make up a BS reason, right? So you might be in a situation where you kind of need the money, but you know that they are undervaluing your work and you should charge a lot higher, but they're not willing to budge, right? In these scenarios, sometimes it's actually okay to walk away from the deals when they're not good for you, right? Because you never want another person to take advantage of you. Now, that's different from, starting off small and then building up to, build a client higher. That's completely different. But if someone's really just trying to rip you off and they are just trying to get your price as low as possible and they're not a good client, sometimes it's just better to walk away from the deal and find a better client, because not everyone is going to do that. So in sales scenarios, know when to walk away and when a deal is not good for you. So the mindset you want to have when it comes to applying this technique is, instead of looking at deals and sales as transactions, think of them as partnerships, right? In scenarios where, especially if you are working with a client in the long term, it's not like you just do a deal, get money, and that you never see them again. Sometimes it's you do a deal, you get some money, and then you have to continue to work with this person in order to have that kind of relationship, and so you can have recurring revenue. So really, when you're selling something, you're actually just looking for whether or not it's a good fit to work together, and that's really the key thing here. So that actually takes a lot of pressure off of selling, because it's not about you trying to impress someone. You're literally just trying to say like, hey, should we work together or not? If we should, I will convince you to do it, and if I find that we're not a good fit to work together for whatever reason, then it's okay for both sides to walk away, right? So when you have that mindset, you're a lot more likely to find better deals, and you're a lot more likely to walk away from deals that are not good for you and not good for the customer, okay? Okay, so now we are gonna go into tip number 5, and that is having a clear purpose for every meeting. So I see this all the time with a lot of salespeople. They'll go into the meeting, everything's good, and they're telling the customer how much value they're gonna bring to them, and then at the end of the meeting, they'll just say something like, okay, so just let me know, call me in a week. And that doesn't work, because you have to have a clear reason for why you guys are going to meet in the future, right? So if you're in a sales cycle where maybe it takes 3 meetings before you actually close the deal, on the first meeting, if everything goes well, at the end of that meeting, you have to set a clear reason for why you will meet on the next meeting, right? So at the end of a meeting, you can say, okay, so it looks like, you're interested in our services, and we're interested in working with you. What I want to do is set up another meeting to talk about XYZ. It could be to talk about pricing or negotiate pricing, or maybe it's to do a demo or some kind of presentation so you can dive a little deeper into whether or not it's a good fit to work together, right? But you should never say something like, hey, let's meet next week and talk about it. You have to be specific on what exactly you're going to talk about. You have to have clear objectives for the next step, so you know what's going on, and the prospect, the customer that you want to work with, knows exactly what's going on, so that if there's any miscommunication or maybe you're not on the same page, you can realign yourself, because all this information is exchanged between you and the customer. Now, if you do not do this, everything's confusing and the customer may never respond back to you and you have no idea why, and then you never close the deal. And that happens to so many salespeople. And the number one reason I feel is because they're not setting clear intentions or objectives for what will happen on that next meeting. So if you have clear objectives for every step of the sales cycle, from the first meeting, second meeting, and third meeting, and you know that you're gonna do things like a presentation, a demo, and negotiations, and it's always the same steps pretty much every single time, then you know exactly whether or not you will close deals, and nothing will be left to vagueness or mystery. All right, guys, so those are gonna be some top 5 tips that you can use and implement in sales right away to start closing more deals. Make sure you do actually practice them, because it's not enough just to watch the videos. These are things that you should be using right away. And if you made it to the end of this video, make sure you give this video a like if you haven't already, because every like does help this video reach new audience. And for those of you who haven't subscribed yet, make sure you hit the subscribe button, because I'm gonna be dropping new sales training videos every single week. And lastly, if you wanna get notifications, make sure you hit that notification bell to be notified on when I actually do release these videos. And in the comments, something I'm really curious about is, which tip did you find most useful in this video? It's always helpful for me to hear your feedback, so I wanna know, which tip did you find most useful? Put it in the comments. So with that said, that is it for this video, and I'm gonna see you guys in the next one.